Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. This video is going to be my first look at the Forgotten Truths raid event. This is a special 2nd anniversary raid for Dragalia Lost. It has some insights into lore 1,000 years before the main events of the game. It's really exciting to look back into the past of the world of Dragalia Lost, the world of Grestea, and see what was going on at the time. This is a must-play raid for lore fanatics of the game, and I'm really hyped. I've very much enjoyed checking out the story so far. So basically, in this video, we're going to do a couple things. I will head into the Forgotten Truths raid, kind of navigate you through it, just talk about what's available here, maybe talk a little bit about the free raid unit, Mordecai, and then, toward the end of the video, I'll also give you my impressions on all of the story quests or story chapters that I've seen so far since I've played through episode 8, and I want to save those for the end in case you haven't played those yourself yet and don't want to get spoiled. Now, you may be spoiled just because of the nature of the raid boss we're about to fight. It is a very epic one, so let me start off with just some generics about the event. First up, if you're totally new to raids in Dragalia Lost, let's say you weren't here for Fractured Futures, which was a revival of the 1st anniversary raid that just finished up, or maybe you were here but it was very confusing, I will card out with a link in the corner as well as the description to a raid guide I made earlier this year that's just a general purpose raid guide. One thing that has changed since I made that guide, and I think there's a pinned comment about it, is that nowadays the units that you get for free from the raid, you're going to be able to collect some special items called convictions. And just by playing the raid, you're going to get enough of these convictions to automatically 50 node the free units you get from the raid. So if you're wondering about whether or not to build Mordecai, the great thing is you don't have to decide. You're going to get Mordecai fully built if you just play through the raid. And he does seem to be a pretty good unit from what I can tell so far, and certainly a good unit in the context of the raid because he's going to have some perks as well as far as what he does here. So mine is still pretty much just a baby, just brand new. I haven't actually unlocked any of his nodes. His first skill right now reduces enemy strength and deals light damage. The second skill I haven't even unlocked, but it does extra damage to debuff foes. Strength co-ability, always good to see. That's usually available on blades. Elemental res plus 10%, reduces all elementally attuned damage. That's unique to him. Curse res, and then Immaculate Shield 2. Using Immaculate Wings grants the user a 1-use shield that nullifies damage based on a certain percentage of the user's max HP. Pretty cool character in my opinion, I'll talk more about that later. But certainly for this raid, Mordecai, because of those perks alone, is going to be a great character to bring with you. And especially if you haven't built out a large roster yet, he's an excellent choice. And you want to play with Mordecai on your team until you boost out this friendship meter, which maxes out at 500. That's going to ensure that Mordecai stays your ally even after the raid event period ends. It also lets you collect an additional daily endeavor, because this last one, the summon voucher that you can get every day, you're not going to get the summon voucher until you actually form a friendship with Mordecai. So it's good to try to do that sooner rather than later. You just need to include him on quests in order to be able to build up that friendship gauge. Alright, here are some of the limited rewards you can get from the raid event. Limited in the sense that they're limited time, only available during the event and a little bit afterward. I think there's a reward collection period. But basically, some of these things like these extra weapons, if you already have it, it's not like this is an exclusive weapon or exclusive skin. This is just a void sword. But it's nice because for players who don't have it, you're adding it to your collection. It's a decently effective sword as far as the stats and whatnot for your characters, like say Uden, who you're going to start off at a little stronger point than you would otherwise with whatever it is you're crafting. So that's kind of nice. Now, if you already have that weapon, you're going to get 3 void swords. You get a 10-fold just for playing in the event. You can get a lot of Blazon summons. Zephyr was a boss in this event, which we may check out as well, and you're going to get a bow. We'll go ahead and just collect everything here. There's also a staff and a light blade. That goes with Mordecai, and the wind bow goes with, I guess, Mayonnaise. I'm not really sure on the pronunciation, but I feel like after recording my last video, mean seems wrong. Although I listened to the story in Japanese, haven't heard the English pronunciations of anything yet, so correct me if I'm off. But looks like we're good because we just got those 300 Blazons on all the daily endeavors. Try to do those every day of the event. There's one more thing you're going to want to do daily, which we'll talk about in just a second. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Everything else you can kind of read about in the guide I put together about collecting the stuff from the Blazons and from the emblems, which I just said in opposite order to what I clicked on, as well as the raid boosts and the rare raid boosts. So far, even though it says I've completed these boss battles, I just did them AFK to burn wings. I actually haven't seen the raid boss fight itself. So I think I'm going to start with that, then we'll do EX and we'll see what's available after that. I will also play some of the earlier quests just for the ambiance, because I actually think that they did a pretty nice job with the ambiance and the maps on this. Now we are going to play in a private room, hopefully so we can see more of the fight. I'm going to do this by myself, just because in co-op, unfortunately, we are just really powerful at this point in the game, and with version 2.0, a lot of characters are stronger than they were before in general. We're often quite powerful for the earlier difficulties or easier difficulties in a raid to begin with, and it gets steadily harder and harder. But look at this, this looks pretty good. Yeah. Oh, he has a voice line. Yeah, I haven't seen this at all. Oh, I love how reflective the arena is. Dark fire, okay. And we have a special move as part of this raid, so let's try it. Looks like we're doing fixed damage, because we did 999 with that. Maybe that special move does fixed damage? Seems like it. And I may have missed a 9 when I was saying it. Let's zoom out a little bit. We don't really get to see much else. But we'll check out the EX battle. I have to imagine it's similar. Oh, is there a second phase to the fight? No, Murciati just retreated into darkness. I love the background. I think it looks really good with the cel-shaded style. It reminds me of like a Bayonetta stage or something. Kind of everything just floating in the abyss. Now let's play EX. I'll do a private battle again so that hopefully we can make it last a little while longer than we would in co-op. I know from co-op players are destroying this raid really quickly. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna listen to what he says. All shall perish. All shall perish. So ominous. Also that teleport dash he does. I like it. Okay, let's wander. Let's wander a little bit. We're not in a rush. Maybe we should be in a rush, but we're not. One thing I like is when they change the camera angles. Notice how when I'm back here, the camera angle's like this, and then when I walk this way, I kind of get a pan out. Okay, what's this move? Interesting. Now we'll attack. We'll use our special move, Dark Tide. That hit one of our AI. So it looks like Murciati has 2 hands and a tail as far as parts that you can demolish. Those usually give you a little bit extra drops, so it's good to try to demolish those. And it'll often disable some of the boss's moves. Okay. Now this looks potentially interesting here. Somebody's trapped there. I think it's Rhea. What if we do this? Oh, well, when we time it like that, it didn't really work out for us, but that's gonna do it for the battle, I'm pretty sure. I don't think I even have to attack here. The AI are going to make quick work of Murciati. This hatred of mine yet burns, and now he escapes into a portal. Very interesting. Alright, so it's on the easier side for now because some of the harder difficulties aren't available right at the start of the raid. I think that's mostly to accommodate new players. But most likely, if you just do quick play on this, you're going to get a mix of newer players with maybe a weaker might level and strength level, and some higher powered players to where you can clear this relatively easily and consistently. And yeah, it looks like the next available difficulty is going to be Nightmare, which comes out on the 3rd. There is more Story that comes out on the 5th. And I know that Omega is available. There are some Omega keys in the emblems. And they're going to make Omega available on October 5th as well. So the same time that the extra story chapters come out. This Nightmare difficulty is the thing I was referring to earlier as the other thing you want to make sure you do daily. By doing this once per day, you're going to collect a treasure chest grand bounty. That's going to include some precious materials as well as some amount of bronze and silver emblems. And it's a good way to clear out the bronze and silver emblems, at least through 1,000, which is where the good rewards tend to be for those. And the golds, the good rewards tend to be through 3,000. Okay, let's start collecting some of our goodies. So we finished our daily endeavors. We got another void weapon for this, but this is one I already have. I'm pretty sure I recrafted all the void weapons already when version 2.0 came out. But if we get some of these emblems, then we can get some Mordecai's convictions. And I plan on playing this raid a fair amount, so I'm not going to concern myself overly with saving some blazons in here for the sake of doing my dailies easier in future days. That is something I've done in the past, but I don't think it really matters today for this. One thing I have liked is, seeing some of these void materials in here. If you didn't notice, they took worm prints out of the blazon summons, which on net means we can no longer use raid events as a way to farm extra Eld water, which is something we could do pre 2.0. But we do need a lot of void materials if you want to unlock the various abilities and skins on your void weapons. It just takes a lot of random void materials, so I've found myself definitely wanting for a lot of these items and crafting mats that were never relevant pre 2.0 or largely irrelevant. So it is kind of nice that you get to pick up at least some of those while you're going through the Blazon summons and getting these convictions, which are, one of the main things you're here for, as well as getting a little bit of Wormite and some rupees and other upgrade materials. So let's go ahead and do additional summons. So we'll get into Blazon Box 2 here and go ahead and skip ahead so we can just see everything we picked up. Looks like we have a good amount of convictions to work with now, so I'll show you on the upgrade screen what that looks like for Mordecai. So all you do is you go to upgrade, you go to mana circles, and you'll scroll down to wherever Mordecai is. Mordecai is at 0 for me right now, so I had to scroll to the bottom. And during the raid event, while it's playing, the way you unlock Mordecai's nodes and the various stages in between, the unbinding stages, is using those conviction items. And there should be, there should be 54, which is exactly enough to get him to 50 nodes. So it works out perfectly. If you don't finish unbinding him during the raid period, then you have to use whatever the typical material cost would be for this, which is usually more expensive. It means you're going to have to spend like 73k Eld water to max out his co-ability of strength, for instance. So he's a great blade as a beginner pickup because you're going to be able to max out his nodes entirely, and that's a strength co-ability for your entire team that you put him on. Looks like we only were able to unlock 8 nodes though. We'll collect our first clear reward from, I guess, EX. I think that's what that was from. And we'll head back into the Forgotten Truths page, and we'll do a boss battle real quick, and then I will talk a little bit about the story. So for this boss battle, we're going to turn off auto repeat and speed times 2, because the main thing I want to say about this battle, I guess there's 2 things. One is, I appreciate it not being a generic boss enemy. It's at least Zephyr, who is kind of a cooler boss enemy. He is in the Void Battle, so it is kind of a reskin, but look at this arena. Look at the colors on this. This looks beautiful. Now, I hope my AI gets away in time to not kill Zephyr, but they didn't. So that's on me, but just look at this. This is really pretty. Despite being on fire, it is really pretty. The shades, the coloration, the warm hues that are being used here, the purple and red in contrast, I love the map design. I'm always an enthusiast for beautiful looking maps. I wish there was a way to select, the maps that you fight endgame bosses on, because I think it would actually make them more enjoyable in some cases to actually just see a different type of map or background. We're going to abandon our team here a little bit. I mainly made this team for this recording anyway, so let's do a team of just Mordecai. We can be sure if there's only one character on our team that he's not going to clear all the enemies really quickly, because obviously we'll be controlling him. And Mordecai isn't fully built out for me yet anyway, so we shouldn't have to worry too much about that. So let's put Thor on just for fun. And for a Mordecai build, with blades, they don't have a weapon-specific skill damage worm print, so generally speaking, the best you can get in one worm print slot is going to be a 30% skill damage print, and they're all kind of the same. Heralds of Hinamoto, Resounding Rendition, the Worm Clan Duo, there are others, they're all kind of the same. You can get one for free from the event archive, which is the Plunder Pals worm print, so if you don't have a lot of Eldwaters to spend, that's a good one to get for free. It's almost the exact same effect. The only thing is it doesn't have quite the stats, and it doesn't have the Crown's Boon affinity. But right now that Crown's Boon affinity is kind of irrelevant anyway. Otherwise for blades, you probably still want to pack some amount of strength, so something like Memory of a Friend. Flurry Strength is great on units who can maintain a combo because you're capping out on the 20% strength you can get off of prints. If you can't maintain a combo, and you can maintain above 70% HP, then Crystallian Envoy is the best alternative. And if you can maintain full HP but can't maintain a combo, then you can use a full HP equals strength print, like the Fires of Hate, like this one. What's this one called? Endless Waltz. And there's one more. I think it's called, Evening of Luxury. And Flash of Genius, again, this is an exact clone of Memory of a Friend, I believe. Maybe a slight stat difference, but they have the same affinity and everything, so those are pretty much the same. I don't really know Mordecai's playstyle that well, but I assume in this, easier quest, we're not going to be able to maintain a combo easily because there's going to be a lot of random enemies. And otherwise for blades, in their other slots, you probably want to fit in a Punisher effect that's appropriate for the element that you're using. So for the light element, once I unlock this, that would probably mean a Paralysis Punisher effect. Although frankly, nowadays with shared skills, you could probably run like Poison Punisher in a lot of contexts and just use your 4-star slots on Punisher instead and use Plaguebringer. Or same thing with his clever brother. I wouldn't be surprised if that's popular just so you can save your 5-star slot for something else. But otherwise, you want to have an Affliction Punisher usually, and then you kind of have a flex slot that you could use, let's say, Broken Punisher in. You could use Overdrive Punisher. I could see that being good against the Master Difficulty Agito Trials, just because they're constantly in overdrive, or a large portion they're in overdrive. Strength Double buff. If you want to have a comp with lots of defense buffs, if you need some healing, you can use Healing Double buff. There's a large variety of prints you can use. But for this, it really doesn't matter, so I think we're good on these 2 prints, and we're not going to mess with his shared skills or anything. We're just going to view the quest. I just wanted to share these last few quests they added for this, because I really think, presentation-wise, and this looks mostly like the same, but we're fighting the androids, which is kind of cool, and it's wave-based. Yeah, this one's the same, but there's one when it's before the fires. So we'll go back and look at that one. But yeah, I think presentation-wise, this raid has really impressed me. When you start off the raid, there's a story trailer for the raid. It's similar to the trailer, or maybe even identical, that they posted over on YouTube. But that is very cool to me. There's only been one other raid, to my memory, where we got that, which was the Doomsday Getaway raid that happened earlier this summer, which was very different for how raids have traditionally worked. Here we go, yeah, so this map is like the other map, but not on fire, but it still looks really pretty, right? You can see Grastea, what will become Alberia 1,000 years ago. I mean, you can just look out onto the city. Not in detail, but like, I think it looks really good. Anyway, I'm a map enthusiast. So we'll get out of that. That's enough about the gameplay aspects of the raid so far. So let's dive into the story with the last 10 minutes or so that we have here. And full spoilers for everything that's happened in the story of Dragalia Lost, as well as the Forgotten Truths story for this particular raid. So as far as the story goes, I enjoyed the story. I personally really like getting a window into what was happening in the technological era of Dragalia. So we've known since before the game launched that there was a big war between humans and dragons, and it had to do with humans' reliance and use of technology, and how it polluted the environment, it sapped nature of its natural flow of mana, which was offensive and inhospitable to the dragons that lived there as well. And this led to a clash between sort of human hubris and dragons representing nature, the reclamation of civilization by nature. And it was always sort of a great mystery, but we knew that what led humans and dragons to come together was this pact that was formed between Ilian and Elysium when humans went too far and tried to summon a demon, Morsayari, to fight the dragons for them, and the demon just wanted to destroy everything. So, we get obviously a very big spin or twist on things via this raid story. It's presented better in the story than I could probably recap it for you, but basically Zethia is sent back to the past by Morsayari or the Other during the period in which Morsayari is inhabiting her body or using her body as a vessel. He has subjugated her will, and he sends her back as an astral or mana projection into the past. Now, one thing I want to mention with respect to that is you have to think about all of this through the lens of this being what present-day Morsayari wanted Zethia to see. So there is an element to an unreliable narrator here, or an element of that, to where this could be a manipulation of Zethia by the Other, because ultimately he has complete dominion over her in the present day of Alberia and has taken control of her body. So he could have sent her back or sent her into a dream realm and shown her probably whatever he wanted to show her. So there is some sense in which could this be a way that the Other is gaining sympathy from Zethia? Maybe. I mean, I don't know if they want to go that far, because that might be a little bit extra convoluted for the plot of this, but that doesn't seem out of the question to me, because this is a total retelling of what happened. Now, on the other hand, if you think about real-world history, things are forgotten and reinterpreted, and there is a telephone effect that happens as things are passed from generation to generation, where what you hear on the other end is not necessarily what was spoken or what happened back 1,000 years ago. So I do think there's a reasonable chance that, this is actually what happened in the timeline that Zethia and Yuden and everybody inhabits in the main campaign of the game, that this is actually just what happened in the past. Okay, so with that out of the way, Zethia goes back to the past. She wakes up, she's in a forest, there are some goons led by somebody named August, and August is chasing after this girl, Ilia, who is a genius alchemist. They chase her back into a lab. Zethia is, or I guess they take them back to a lab. Zethia seems to be in cahoots to these people with Ilia, but obviously they just met. Zethia just showed up in the past. But apparently Ilia is able to tell that Zethia has a large amount of mana. They're in like a lab where there's a mana kiln, and they're asking Ilia to open a portal to the other world. And apparently they've been seeking her out because her technology and research into these otherworld portals could be a valuable weapon for them against the dragons in their war on the dragons. So Ilia doesn't really want to participate in this. They get away. It's funny, I just read this earlier today, but my memory is kind of fuzzy, so the details are not important. But anyway, they get away. They go back to Ilia's house. Ilia has a little light that kind of looks like the fairy Navi or something like that from Ocarina of Time and the Zelda games that came out of the Otherworld portal that Ilia started to open up. Some fiends also came out of it. There was a big clash. That's kind of when everybody got away. And they go back to Ilia's house, and she, being an alchemist, decides to give that little spark of life a body. And that becomes Mordecai, and we're also introduced to Mayane, who is like the fairy godmother of Ilia, and we find out that in this world, fairies have a growth period, and basically it's a period when the fairy actually grows in size. They're able to leave the fairy kingdom and go out into the world and experience the world, but eventually they're going to shrink back down, and then they have to come back. They're required to come back. So obviously, sirens flashing in my mind for, yes, my theory from the last video, which was actually a video about the Summon Showcase, or 2 videos ago now, where we learned about how Mayonnaise had butterflies. To me, it seems likely that the twins are fairies, because they're all about freedom, and if this is what happens to all fairies, that they have to go back to their kingdom and they eventually shrink down to fairy size, like not size, then it seems possible to me that that's why they're so adamant about freedom, because they like being out in the world. Anyway, we find out that she's Ilia's fairy godmother and kind of looking after her. And we also see Mordecai starting to learn about the world and how people interact and what love is. And Zethia's trying to hide the secret that she's from the future. She doesn't know what to do. She's surprised that Ilia has such a different personality than the goddess that she's portrayed to be 1,000 years later. And she's not sure if she should tell them about the future. So she's very conflicted. But Ilia is wise to Zethia's machinations. She's pretty aware and sure that somebody who doesn't know about alchemy and all these technologies and everything that's going on 1,000 years ago is from somewhere else. And she deduces that Zethia is from the future. They are attacked and ambushed by some androids. Meantime, everyone is still chasing Ilia. And by everyone, it's not just the humans who want to use her technology for war. Eventually, we find out that Elysium is also interested in Ilia, and I think that they have some type of history with her from a young age, where early on she wasn't a suitable vessel for Elysium's designs, but we get a very different portrayal of Elysium as kind of an austere, villainous angel dragon. So it reminds me a lot, I'm going to use the Bayonetta reference again, but it reminds me a lot of sort of the portrayal of the divine in franchises like Bayonetta as something sinister and suspicious, so or like a cold indifference and judgment. So that's kind of the vibe I get from Elysium, of like, there's a frightening nature to Elysium's visions of the world, of a perfectly still and calm and no entropy existence. And the analogy that I drew, or the franchise that came to mind, was it reminded me a lot of Gurren Lagann. If any of you have ever seen Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann, it's a really good mecha anime. It's one of my favorites. And in this franchise, there's 2 main arcs, but in particular the second arc, there's a conflict between what are spiral beings, what are known as spiral beings or something like that basically have spiral power or spiral energy. And it relates to like them being humans and having this cyclical double helix DNA, and the potential that means for them to constantly expand and evolve themselves and better themselves, and an anti-spiral race that were once spirals, and they realized that their constant growth and constant development jeopardized everything. So they kind of like stripped themselves of their humanity. It became almost like in a slumber, and their goal was to wipe out all the spiral life in the universe. Like, it was this crazy, epic conflict. So I highly recommend that series. Sorry if I spoiled anything for you, but I don't know if it would make sense, even if you start watching it, until you get very deep into it, at which point you kind of know what's going on. But that is the vibe I got from this, of Elysium wanting a still and perfect world where humans can't mess it up, and humans, being as we are, just trying to progress with technology. We have all these flaws, we have all these pitfalls, but Midgard Summer Zero is kind of the voice of wisdom of saying, let's allow them to become a mature species and see if they don't become wiser in time as to the nature of their ways and what they're doing. So Elysium doesn't agree. Elysium wants to basically exert its will, or his will, over the world, and ultimately he makes a deal with Ilia, reluctantly by Ilia. She steps up and decides to do it for the sake of saving people. And in particular, there's like a bomb attack that is planned on a city. And she steps up and does it, but it appears to kill her. This sets off Mordecai into a rage, and he transforms into Morsayadi, a being manifest from otherworldly power, the other, full of dark energy, and he starts a clash with Ilia. So, with Elysium, excuse me. So that is kind of where we left off, and toward the end of their clash, which lasts for 7 days, Ilia returns, and she hasn't died, and she's going to start a religion, she's going to start a church, the Ilian faith. It's all kind of hard to track, honestly. Like, I don't really know what her point is as far as wanting to get the people to make Elysium into sort of their savior figure. I don't really know why that's her goal, but it is her goal. And as far as the part where she appeared to have died, that is how Elysium created something known as Dragalia, which is a pact that represents their bond. And after that happened, and she comes back sort of from the dead 7 days later, interesting scenario there. Well, when she comes back, she sort of has a connection to Elysium. Like, she can figure out Elysium's intentions and thoughts. And, yeah, maybe there's a real-world analogy that they're going for. But in any case, what I thought of, and this may speak to my base nature, but I thought of anime again. So I thought of Devilman Crybaby, which is a great series. Especially, I enjoy the Netflix adaptation of it. It's for mature audiences. It has some morbid elements to it. But there's an epic fight at the end of the series, right? That is the fight that I think of as far as when I think what was happening when Elysium was clashing with Morsayadi around the world. Just like a global catastrophe scale battle, planetary scale battle between these two divine entities. The thing that's very weird to me and kind of unexplained is, what is the problem that dragons have with beings or things coming from other worlds into this world? That is very unusual to me. Maybe it's because of dragons' connection to mana, but it doesn't seem to be the case that at the time dragons had total dominion over mana. Because one of the things that Midgardstormer Zero advocates for is, let the humans forge their own way. We dragons should not become the gatekeepers of mana, because if we do that, we'll be making humans a subservient race to us, and they'll never be able to rise out of that if we hold all the control over mana. So it seemed to me that in the past there was more equal footing between the access to this. And another thing that interested me was sort of the fairies' role in everything, right? And so what Mayane said was something to the effect of, you know, the fairies, or her at least, wanting to also be more neutral, similar to Midgardstormer Zero, and not decide one way or the other, because humans were their own species, and they needed the right to decide what they were going to do with themselves. But, yeah, sorry for my my train of consciousness ramblings on the story. Just a lot happened. I mean, it was very cool, but also very overwhelming. Like, what is going on? I mean, it totally recasts the Ilian faith as you think of it in the main campaign of the game. We definitely see some hints of technology, but with a tinge of magic, which is appropriate, I think. It's kind of not steampunk per se, but I am hoping that as far as the weapons that we see come out of this, like the Manicaster weapons, that they are more steampunk than realistic, which I think is the case just by the name Manicaster. And honestly, I think Ilia is likely to be a summonable character on the next showcase. It's still a mystery. She may or may not be, but I would not be surprised. They probably want to get more Manicasters into the game, and she definitely had a Manicaster that she was holding as part of her story portrait, so I feel like it's likely that she's coming up. I just don't know who would be there alongside her. But, yeah, I think that's going to do it for my thoughts, at least for now. I'll probably make a more cohesive video with some additional raid thoughts once the 5th rolls around, so I can give you my updated impressions on the story. Maybe check out the Omega raid, since those should be pretty fun. certainly more exciting than the Expert in EX because it is a little on the easier side. But that is going to do it for today, everyone. So let me know what you thought about the Forgotten Truths raid in the comments below. I'm curious. Please correct me if I said anything that was wrong, but I tried my best to recap, so don't be too hard on me. Anyway, y'all, I'll be back tomorrow because it's October 1st, and that means another This Month in Dragalia Lost. So we're going to get to find out what's happening in October. We're having some anniversary events continue, obviously, but who knows? Maybe they'll give us a sneak peek of something else that we don't know about or we're not expecting. Maybe we'll get some hints about what's to come for Halloween. But as I said before, that's really going to do it for today. So thank you as always for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.